When you think of Oscar season 2007, most people only seem to remember two movies: No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood. Not that I have a problem with either film per se. My problem is Oscar season 2007's lack of depth. Award season in '07 itself was top-heavy. No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood dominated all film talk, with each receiving 8 total Oscar nominations, including Best Picture. As soon as the nominees were unveiled, it was pretty much guaranteed one of these two would take home Best Picture, and/or Best Director. When looking back at the 5 2007 Best Picture nominees, I feel like a majority of people only really discuss those two now. So today, I'm diving into Oscar season 2007, discussing the Oscar darlings, snubs, and all things award season. Let's get started. Alright, the question on everyone's mind before the Oscar nominations are revealed is what films will be nominated for Best Picture. So let's figure out what some of 2007's best movies were that could have been a contender for Best Picture. I already mentioned No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood. Coming from the highly popular directors, the Coen brothers and PTA, while receiving critical acclaim, the moment they released, both were automatic shoo-ins for Best Picture nominations. No questions asked. Each movie came out during a good time for Oscar recognition too, with No Country coming out on November 9th, and There Will Be Blood on December 26th. But what else in '07 stood out? Personally, my favorite movie of the year was David Fincher's Zodiac. This gripping crime thriller constantly keeps you on the edge of your seat. Despite its long length, you never feel tired. In fact, last time I rewatched Zodiac, even though it was pretty late on a work night, I stayed up to finish the movie. That's how captivated I was. And no matter how many times I watch Zodiac, the same feeling doesn't go away. With a strong cast including RDJ, Mark Ruffalo, and Jake Gyllenhaal, alongside David Fincher as director, this absolutely had Oscar-worthy written all over it. Another one of my favorite potential Oscar darlings from 2007 was Atonement. When I watched Atonement for the first time a handful of years ago, I actually had never heard of it before, which is hard to believe considering James McAvoy and Keira Knightley star. Plus, the film received critical acclaim in 2007, so it blows my mind how under the radar it was years later. Nonetheless, I think it's a great movie. Definitely would be around my top 5 to 10 best from 2007. Other 2007 films that stand out to me here include 3:10 to Yuma, one of the best new age westerns and remakes. Of course, there's Ratatouille, a 2000s Pixar classic. For many, it's the best overall Pixar movie. Ratatouille ventures into ideas such as following one's dreams no matter who you are, and challenging societal expectations. It's a beautiful film that should inspire just about anyone. There's also Into the Wild, Eastern Promises, American Gangster, as well as Sunshine. More 2007 Oscar-worthy movies a lot of audiences love include The Assassination of Jesse James, Before the Devil Knows You're Dead, I'm Not There, Gone Baby Gone, and Sweeney Todd. Alright, with the best Oscar-worthy movies of 2007 out of the way, let's dive into the top candidates for Oscar noms in the acting categories. No surprise here, the most memorable male performance came from Daniel Day-Lewis in There Will Be Blood. A big reason why I love the film in the first place is because of Day-Lewis's performance. I've probably repeated this line 100 times by now.
I drink your milkshake.
So yeah, Day-Lewis put on a clinic in There Will Be Blood. Right next to him as most memorable male performance had to have been Javier Bardem in No Country for Old Men. He was viewed as a supporting actor, but I feel like himself and Josh Brolin were co-leads. Maybe that's because Javier stole the spotlight from Brolin's main character with his captivating role. I also thought George Clooney gave a great performance as usual in Michael Clayton. It should shock nobody he received praise from critics and audiences. Same for Brad Pitt in The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, Viggo Mortensen in Eastern Promises, Denzel Washington in American Gangster, and Emile Hirsch in Into the Wild. When it comes to the woman, this was a relatively weak year for ladies. Most of the big Oscar-worthy movies were led by men in 2007. As far as Best Leading Woman, in my mind all I can think of is Keira Knightley in Atonement and Ellen Page in Juno. When it comes to Best Supporting Woman performances, literally nothing comes to mind. I'm being a tad harsh. I did like Naomi Watts and Eastern Promises quite a bit, along with Amy Ryan and Gone Baby Gone. From a Best Director standpoint, every year it pretty much goes hand in hand with the Best Picture nominations. So there really isn't a reason for me to go through each director who stood out, because I already named the best Oscar-worthy movies. Although this is an award I think David Fincher should have been nominated for, and ultimately won. What about other categories? The only smaller category sticking out to me is Best Visual Effects. We'll talk about why in just a bit, but first, if you're new here and enjoying yourself, click that subscribe button and turn on all notifications for upcoming videos. Okay, now let's get into the 80th Academy Awards. We'll discuss the nominees and winners, starting with visual effects. Two obvious candidates for Best Visual Effects were Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End and Transformers. To this day, people still discuss how great these movies look. That Davy Jones CGI couldn't be any better. And every single Michael Bay Transformers film has visuals head and shoulders above most movies we see today. If it were up to me, since Pirates had taken home this prize the year before, Transformers would be the winner for 2007's Best Visual Effects. However, neither film ended up winning. Nope, the Golden Compass won, despite questionable visuals in comparison to Pirates and Transformers. My guess as to why is because, well, the Academy seems to have something against Michael Bay. And like I said, Pirates had won the previous year. Also, At World's End received less than stellar reviews, with many considering it the worst of the original Pirates trilogy. So I suppose the next in line was the Golden Compass. If we take a look at the Women's Acting Awards, beginning with Best Supporting Actress, does anyone remember these performances? I mentioned Amy Ryan, but damn, there really wasn't a noteworthy supporting actress performance in 2007. Or at least one that people talk about in present day still. The same goes for Best Actress, sadly. You know it was a year for men when I've only heard of Juno out of these 5 films. Like, what movie did Marion Cotillard win for here? Does anyone care now? Probably not, regardless if the movie is good. Actor-wise, why even bother getting into it? As soon as No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood dropped, everyone and their mother knew Javier Bardem and Daniel Day-Lewis would take home these awards. Both movies constantly overshadowed everything as far as big awards go. I feel like no one remembers the Woman Acting Awards in 2007 because all anyone cared about acting-wise was Daniel Day-Lewis and Javier Bardem. And you almost certainly forgot about some of the men too, who competed against Day-Lewis and Bardem since both actors were that good. Now this one shouldn't surprise people either. Best Director went to the Coen brothers for No Country for Old Men. I'm sure PTA was a close second choice, but after that, no one else stood a chance to win Best Director. If only David Fincher was nominated. Or hell, Brad Bird for Ratatouille. Come on! Finally, Best Picture. Who were the nominees in 2007, and who ultimately won? Well, here are the nominees, and the winner was again, No Country for Old Men. If I watched the 80th Academy Awards live, I would have guessed There Will Be Blood would win here, since No Country won Best Director. However, I suppose it was a special kind of year. Either way, nobody should be surprised. We all knew No Country for Old Men or There Will Be Blood would end up taking home the gold. As for the other 3 Best Picture nominees, when I say top-heavy, it shows. Like, no wonder everyone knew ahead of time one of No Country or There Will Be Blood would win Best Picture, as the rest of this field had no chance. Juno is good, but it's a film I'll likely never watch again. I'm not a fan of Michael Clayton, and Atonement, while I really love it, I don't think there's a whole lot of people out there who love it as much as I do. If it were up to me, I would have nominated Zodiac, which, by the way, crazy enough, did not receive a single Oscar nomination at the 80th Academy Awards, Ratatouille, and 3:10 to Yuma to go head-to-head with No Country and There Will Be Blood. 2007 is a movie year I have always viewed as weaker. As a result, top 10 lists for 2007 are rather thin. When I say No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood absolutely dominated film discussions in 2007, I mean it. You'd have a tough time finding top 10 lists without either movie on there. Again, neither are bad movies by any means, not even close. I just wish the 2007 Oscar-worthy films had a deeper lineup, and that the field as a whole could have been less top-heavy. I hate years when one or two movies are all anyone ever talks about. Look at 2023 and that Oscar season, for instance. All anyone discussed was Oppenheimer. 16 Academy Award seasons prior wasn't much different. So, what are your thoughts on Oscar season 2007? Do you agree it felt top-heavy? With films like No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood dominating all film discussions? And the Academy Awards entirely? Also, tell me what your favorite film of 2007 is. Let me know everything in the comments. Well, thank you all so much for watching this video. Again, if you're new here and enjoyed yourself, be sure to subscribe and hit that like button. I'll catch you all in the next one. See you then.